Let's see. Up next, we have review of The Endless with Sir Scotty, who is up here joining us now. Okay, The Endless. First of all, before we get into discussing this, I want to ask you what made you pick this movie?
I came across it on the horror subreddit discussion board. It came up. There were multiple threads showing that this one's really good. Check it out. Go in blind. That was the general consensus.
Okay.
I get a lot of my movie suggestions between there. Sometimes things that you've seen because you've seen a lot that I haven't seen. So that's usually my go-to. And when I saw all these discussions on it, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I saw the word Lovecraftian in like nature. And I was like, that's all it takes. That encapsulates me perfectly. So I watched it, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and then I wanted to suggest it. I told you I was unsure as to the horror elements, which they're there. But it's not a mile a minute, fly by seat of your pants. Okay, monsters chopping people up, or all this. It's much more existential. There's a lot of it messes with your head. What's going on? What is this? Why is this happening?
All right. Well, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to play the trailer. I'm going to have you watch it and show people generally what we're talking about. Okay. So I'm going to have you talk about this with the Rotted Souls crew over here. So just direct it over here. I have to attend to something real quick on the live stream. But feel free.
Scotty, speak.
I don't know. I absolutely I love this movie. I thought there's so many movies nowadays. They're aping, Insidious. They're aping there's sequels, reboots. There's not it's nice to come across something different. This isn't set in some predetermined universe that everyone we've seen a million times. It's not. It's hard sometimes. It's hard to classify sometimes as a horror film to that degree. It's not, jump scares. There's nothing like that really in there.
I certainly think it's mental horror.
Yeah, you have to think. It's all about the thinking. And these two brothers, their principal is Aaron and Justin. They grew up on this commune. They didn't. They don't have a life before that, and they don't even bother going into that. It's touched upon momentarily. That's really it. But for the most part, it's just, okay, this is their life now. They're not happy with their life. They came out of that commune where they had a good life, food, friends. It was, for all intents and purposes, perfect. And they come out into the real world and they hate it flat out. It's horrible. They have crappy jobs. So they go back. The brother saw you in the trailer. He's like, okay, we'll stay a night. And then night, okay, well, it turns into 2. It's very unassuming. And you sit there wondering, okay, what's wrong? What's going on? These people that are all, they should be in their, 40s, 50s, but they look unnaturally young. They're all healthy, happy. And, they don't change. And then it's hard to describe without spoiling anything.
I was going to say, it's hard
really,
to talk about
really
that
is.
Now, sorry, I was attending to this here, so stop me if you've already discussed this, but this had a predecessor.
Yes.
Should
I have
be.
not mentioned
I honestly think you did mention that?
No, I didn't mention it. No.
I honestly think, having seen both in order now, I really do think that the first one is something that should be watched first.
Resolution
is the movie that came before The Endless, and it's not a direct sequel, but it ties in very strongly. And one of the things I really liked is Resolution was a fantastic movie in its own right. It did leave you with more questions than answers, but at the same time, it wasn't in such an infuriating way that it was almost like to trigger those kind of thoughts and conversations and get you thinking about it afterward. And then you watch The Endless, and it takes some of those questions that were left unanswered, and it brings them around and gives you that level of satisfaction, while also being its own separate, unique, creative movie.
It's very much, Resolution is a piece of a bigger puzzle.
Yeah.
It's something you watch it, you examine it, It's its own contained movie. It has its own story arc. Honestly, and this is the only thing I think I prefer with Resolution. I kind of like Mike and Chris better as characters. I enjoy, especially Chris. I like. Yes, he was drug addled, but he really nailed it.
Their rapport together is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I really do like it.
The way they feed off of each other is just brilliant.
Well, you're talking about a character who's a drug addict that's being forced to go through withdrawals, and that could have very easily turned into, hey, I want my drugs, where's my drugs, and so forth. And but he played it with such a sense of humor, and like his character shined through even how despondent he was.
But that's a different movie. But they tie in so nicely, and you watch. That's why, because I watched The Endless first,
right,
and then I watched Resolution, and that's why when I wanted to show it to you guys, I was like, okay, let's watch Resolution first. So, it gets the gears turning, like, okay, what is this? And then you want the answers. And then The Endless comes in and hits you with it. It's like, okay, here's what's happening. Here's the bigger picture. Go. And it's I love.
It's one of those movies that I would like to watch again to get a better understanding.
Yeah.
With me, which I did enjoy the movie the first time. And I'd like to watch it again for the second time to understand it after I would watch The Endless first.
It is fun to go back and watch Resolution knowing what you know, because there are little bits and pieces. They did a fabulous job, in my opinion, tying the two together, considering they were 6 years apart, or 6 or 5, maybe. The Endless released, it was either last year or this year. Resolution was from 2012, but they managed to tie it together in such a way where they don't, there's not like, oh, well, this happened here, why is this happening, now? There's no overlap where there's plot holes they cross and it doesn't work.
Right.
It all comes together very cohesively, and it's. I
don't know. I don't know the answer to this question. If you do, then chime in. But do you think that they had the entirety of the mythos planned out of The Endless when they made Resolution?
I have not actually seen anything like director interviews, anything. I've come across a couple. These were actually relatively, I won't say underground movies. They were either the Sundance or Tribeca Film Festival.
Yeah, they were fairly indie.
Yeah. But I think when they made Resolution, I can't imagine they didn't have a general baseline in mind for what they wanted to do.
Right.
It just, yes, theoretically they could have, okay, well, let's do this and explain this like this. It could have worked, but it felt like it almost could have been two parts of the same film.
Right.
Imagine, you're watching The Endless and then you run into these characters from Resolution, and then you could almost look into this window and, okay, here's how they got there, and then go back to The Endless, and it would still all fit. It'd be a bit of a slog, but it would fit.
Right.
And I can't imagine they didn't have a general concept that they wanted to work on, they had in mind, because it was too, I think, perfectly crafted, to not have been premeditated to at least some degree.
Yeah.
And
I will agree. I honestly was very blown away by this movie, and I was very, very happy that you suggested it. I'm really looking forward to actually turning that into a RotD review over the course of the next week. So,
I love it. Words cannot describe.
Well, you mentioned that you saw that it was Lovecraftian, and I personally have a massive love for Lovecraft. Honestly, anybody that watches my normal reviews and you see the map behind me, anybody that recognizes that knows that I love Lovecraft.
The thing is, the only issue is Lovecraft can be such a diverse topic to cover.
Right.
They have all these, horrible creatures that look, they were once vaguely human. They have existential dread, cosmic horrors. It can really, there are many different ways you can tie it in. This one went more into the, it's existential, what it makes you wonder, why is this happening? What's going on? And then when you see the bigger picture, it gets into the realm of cosmic horror.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
And it's fun. It's always been one of the things with Lovecraft that I like, is it's incredibly fun to speculate as to what is this? What is going on? How did this come to be? It's just, there's so much depth to it. And I would recommend anyone read his works. Some of them are very difficult. His wording is, difficult to understand at best. I mean, this was from end of the 19th century. He was around, I believe. So his prose is dated, but reading things like The Mouths of Madness, obviously Call of Cthulhu is a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Anything along those lines, there's just so much there. There's so much meat, and most of them are actually short stories. I mean, I can't think of a story of his that's more than maybe 300 pages.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it was. I know that he did some novellas and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
My first introduction to Lovecraft was Shadows over Innsmouth, which to this day is still my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody in the peanut gallery have a favorite Lovecraft story?
Colorado Space.
Oh, Color Space.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, when you mentioned that this was Lovecraftian, and I saw the same kind of thing being mentioned about this movie, I got very excited by it because I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but I think that Lovecraft has been horribly represented in film thus far. Dagon, I didn't really like that much.
Del Toro sort of, he references him without
he's got the
actually
elements.
going into his actual mythos. But
right.
So cinematically, it's like Del Toro, the one who's like hasn't embraced him fully into his canon, is the one that seems to do the nice cinematic representations of him. So.
Yeah, you definitely get some sense of a lot of Lovecraftian stuff in his films, but as far as like actually adapting his novels,
Not much. I mean, we all got Reanimator, and that's about it. And that's mostly fun.
Right. So I was just really pleasantly surprised by this movie. So I mean, granted, this isn't a direct representation of his mythos.
No,
I don't think there was any cosmic horror that he wrote about that matched what the Endless was about.
It was more heavily influenced by.
Right.
I mean, it's definitely, it's hard to do. It's really hard to do anything with his style properly, and I think they nailed it. Flat out. It's
so much of his stuff is mental,
mm-hmm.
and mental exposition. It's not cinematic inherently.
Yeah, I mean, a lot
think
of his
they would
stories.
have a hard time putting that to cinema. My only brush with Lovecraft was Arkham Horror, the game that we had.
Yeah.
And
I've always wanted to play that.
it's so in depth and it's so involved, and a game can take you an hour or it could take you weeks.
Great.
It's
And
brutal.
It is so brutal, and like there's such a sense of you aren't living through this, so you might as well just buckle up for the ride. Like that's
Honestly,
why
the thing that I thought was most brutal about the game of Arkham Horror is the square footage it takes to play the darn thing.
It does.
yeah,
You
just the
need-
base game.
You need
let
at
alone
least
the
3
expansion.
8-foot long tables.
But they capture that with those
Yeah.
games. That's the thing about Lovecraft. These beings that exist, most of them don't even know we exist in that mythos.
we're kind of ants under
Yeah.
the foot kind of thing.
Yeah, they don't care. Very few of them actually interact with humans in any capacity.
Right.
So it's
Aside from being worshipped.
yeah. I mean, everyone knows Cthulhu, but there's so much more. There's
Oh.
so much. Yogg-Sothoth, Nyarlathotep,
Yeah.
Azathoth.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it goes on and on.
Hey,
mhm,
Mike.
Yeah.
The GameCube had this brilliant game called Eternal Darkness. Is anyone familiar with it?
I've heard of the title, but I don't really know.
So yeah, it was in the early 2000s, and I got 2/3 of the way through. The problem so the game is very Lovecraftian, and it has this what was it called? The blank meter. Oh, sanity meter. That was the best invention
kind
of
of
all
sounds
time.
like Amnesia.
Sanity meter, yeah. And so you start hallucinating, and you couldn't believe what was real and things like that. But for me, I had saved at a point. My last save point, I was in lousy health. So every time I started the game back up, I was doomed to die very quickly because the last save and so eventually I just gave up on it because I didn't want to start from the very beginning again. But I would highly recommend for anybody listening or in the comments or whatever, but like Eternal Darkness it goes down is like a top 10 game in many lists from all generations and all consoles. It was that strong and original concept.
I mean, there aren't many. There's that. There's Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth is also really good. That was on PC, possibly original Xbox. I only know of it on PC for certain. And there's one that is coming out recently, just called Call of Cthulhu, that I'm extremely excited for because they seem to be delving into his works. But we're getting beyond off topic.
That's all right.
I get extremely animated with Lovecraft. Sorry.
The topic today is horror. So we're all good. We're keeping on topic. even if we're straying from the movie review itself. Not that this is even a review, this is just a discussion. So, thank you, Scotty, for picking The Endless. We'll have you back up on in a second for your second pick.